Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am joined with Laura today. You all may recognize her from a few weeks. She joins us quite a bit.
I'm becoming a
Welcome, Laura.
frequent flyer.
I know, it's great. It's always fun when you join us. I think everybody enjoys it, and you have a unique growing area over, like, different from me. So you are in South Carolina.
Correct. Still zone 8, but very different.
I know. I'm always shocked too because I feel like people always ask, "Oh, mine says zone 8." Yeah,
I
mine's
was like,
wrong.
you're not zone 8, are you?
I'm not. Here, let me edit it. I think I was there we go. I am zone 7.
There
There
we
it is.
go.
It's fixed now. I know. I feel like we're very close in zones, but it's very different. Well, thank you everybody so much for joining us today. I know this is going to be a little bit different because typically each week we have a topic that we cover and talk about, but the past several weeks we have always ran out of time at the end and frantically trying to answer as many of your questions as possible. And I feel bad because we never get to all of them. So we figured that this week we would actually take the time to go through and answer all of your questions because I know everybody always has lots of questions, especially this time of year. Getting all of your plants outside and starting to care for them, and pests or watering, or yeah, you name it. The sky's the limit. um, we are also excited to announce for this week, we partnered with Greenstock and we're going to be giving away a vertical planter of theirs, one of the 5-tier ones. And it is, oh my gosh. So we have this one actually here. This is a video I posted this morning on our Instagram page. We have this just sitting right there outside of our patio. It takes up, I mean, very minimal space, but we have so much growing in there. It's amazing. I love it. We have each tier has a different variety of lettuce, and it's amazing. Yeah, I absolutely love it. But they're giving away one of the 5-tier, the maple color. It's exciting. So all you guys need to do to be entered to win is just simply ask a gardening question, and then we'll be pulling them up. And each one we're going to be popping up on the screen and answering. And each time that your questions get pulled, you'll be entered to win. And then we will announce the winner at the very end. And then also get a free 1-year premium from Seed to Spoon app subscription, which also is amazing, right? So on there, you can log as many plants as you want to in your garden. You can get free shipping on all of your orders with the 1-year premium subscription. And you can, I mean, you get a lot of things. And also Growbot, a whole bunch of unlimited questions to Growbot. If you guys don't have our app yet, make sure you download it. There's a QR code right there up on the top of the screen. So scan that if you don't have it. But it will help walk you through growing over 100 different fruits, vegetables, herbs, flowers also. And I am adding more and more flowers every day. So if you guys have any recommendations on new things to add, let me know in the comments. But I'm always adding new things. We have exact planting dates based on your location. It'll calculate out from your closest weather station and pull the estimated frost dates and calculate from there. So that way you don't have to do any math, and give you just some basic care tips and tricks. It'll talk about companion planting, pest management, all of that, and more. I feel like I could go for an hour probably just talking about features on the app because there's so much. Oh, yep, and health benefits. Yeah. I have Dale behind the scenes. He's controlling the computer over here. And also, when I say computer too, there is a web app version. Well, there's a web version of the app too. So if you are logging a whole bunch of plants, then you can go online and do it. Oh, that's awesome. Robot saved $200 in garden soil. I love it. Um, Hey, while we're talking about Growbot, we have a really super exciting announcement that's going to be coming really soon. We are going to be having we're testing it right now where you can send Growbot pictures. So if you have like a pest or like a diseased plant or something like that, you can go through and take a picture of it and post it into Growbot, and Growbot will give you advice. It's awesome.
That sounds
I've
cool.
been, yeah, I've been using it already in our garden and testing. Like, I'm like, ooh, there's a little bit of brown over here. Let me take a picture of it and see what Growbot says to do. And then I was also using it for plant identification, also, and like testing to see what this plant is. And Growbot does amazing. It's incredible. Okay, well, if you guys have any questions, like I said, feel free to leave them in the chat. We're going to go through and try and answer as many questions as possible. And yeah, and also you'll be entered to win. So make sure you guys ask your questions.
There's a lot of questions coming through.
Yes, that's amazing. I love it. I love chatting with you all. So Joshua Gordon, he says, how best to set up a medicinal garden? What plants do you recommend? Okay, this is a great question. Um, So I will recommend the garden themes. So Joshua, I don't know if you have premium or not, but we have this theme garden section, and a lot of them are. We have a few that are free that you can look at too, but some of them are part of the premium app subscription. So, but there's also a medicinal herb section in there too, and it will give you ideas of different varieties that are really good for this type of garden. And there's a whole bunch of different varieties and ideas in there.
Don't forget oregano. My very much obsession.
Yes, I feel like Laura and I talk about oregano a lot because
I think every time we talk, I bring up oregano.
I know I told her because so Dale's sick today, and so Laura's subbing in. It's amazing. So Dale was sick, and Laura was like, "He needs oregano. Get him oregano."
Oregano
So
is great for everything. It
yes,
fixes
so
everything. It
Joshua,
cures everything. So
we need
Joshua, make sure you grow oregano.
but yes, honestly, like there's so many different herbs that are super amazing. So there's a garden theme set up just for that. There's also a growing for health section too, that I want to make sure that I point out too. So if there's one for immune support on there, so if you click through there, you can filter down to all the plants that will help with immune support. Okay. Okay, could you use it to grow all herbs? I'm assuming for the green stock vertical planter. For sure. So we actually have one. I wish I took pictures of every single one of our planters that we have, because they're amazing. We have different varieties for each one. We have one lettuce. We have one that is fully just herbs. So absolutely, you can grow all sorts of different herbs in there, and we even have like things like thyme, sage, oregano, and mint too. We have so many different herbs all in there, so it is just overflowing with herbs. Okay, Katie says, "What's your go-to way to know when you need water?" Okay, Laura, do you want to take this? I feel like I've been talking so much here. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It depends on where you are. It depends on the site that you're growing in, indoor, outdoor. It depends on the plant. It depends on your location. It depends on sun. It's very highly dependent on your surroundings. Always take cues from your plants. Always check your soil. If you're in containers, pick up the containers. If you can pick it up, it's really light. That's a huge key to know that you need to water. If stuff flows through your containers almost instantaneously, also a huge key that you need to water. Wait a little bit and then come back and water again so the soil can expand to absorb some of it. In the ground, you'll see things like the ground cracking if it's too dry. The best way is to just get your hands in there. Just feel your dirt. If it's dry, water it. If your leaves are flagging, which is like drooping, water it. If flower heads are flagging, water it. And it's really important to know to the best of your ability. I know sometimes you end up moving to a place you may not know what something is, to just know what plants you have and just do some minor research on their water requirements. And it'll be a huge help because you'll be able to just absorb some more information. No pun intended.
Yeah, I mean, very similar. I will say, like, one key thing that we always do is we'll just go out there and we'll stick our finger in the soil. And if we touch moisture, then we're good. If it is completely dry, then we go ahead and go ahead and water it.
The quickest way to kill a plant is to overwater it. And that's something that you learn even in the industry, especially with growers. They just sit there and they watch the plant grow, and all they want to do is water it, because we know we got to water it. We got to water it
Too
once a
much
week.
love, right?
Right. So, plants can always come back from being underwatered typically. You're going to have greater success for your plant bouncing back from underwatering than overwatering.
Yeah. Okay. Tips on how to make sure you are in the garden daily to check for weeds, pests, and water. I failed my summer garden last year due to not watering enough. So I will definitely say have it in your sight if possible. So I feel like anything that is out of sight is out of mind, right? So if you see it, you're going to be more likely to notice if there's an issue. I mean, that's my biggest advice there, is just to always make sure to keep your eyes on it.
Just make things easy for yourself. When you are setting up your garden, just keep that in mind. It's okay if you forget about your garden sometimes. I forget about mine all the time here in the South. One of the big things that have helped me a lot was I made my own oyas, which are little water reservoirs that I plant within my raised garden beds. And that has helped significantly. It doesn't eliminate the need for watering, but if you forget to go out for a day, typically you're going to be okay because you're planting your plants around said oya. Another thing that I have learned is I am not an overhead waterer. I never have been. You have a lot of disease pressures when you do overhead watering. I have released some of that stress over overhead watering and allowed myself to water during certain times of day just to make sure that I'm getting it watered. So I do have a sprinkler now. It's just about learning the things that may keep you from doing it, like procrastinating or just not wanting to do it because it's just not enjoyable. And find those things that work for you to keep you kind of in the groove. But I failed too. Who put that? I don't remember who put that question up, but I failed too. So you're not the only one.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a lot of questions about watering that I'm seeing coming up. I'm seeing a theme. So it's definitely not just you. I mean, honestly, you can, if you do overhead water, just do it in the morning. It is going to be my biggest advice too. You'll be less likely to have issues like powdery mildew or things like that. Um, but yeah, I mean, we have to do that sometimes too. I mean, you do what you have to do to take care of them.
Right. And it's different every year. So, some people might be successful using a routine. I am not because our weather is just wild down here sometimes. We can go 2 months with having no rain, but 3 months of nothing but rain in the spring. And it's just the drastic temperature changes here during the season changes as well. It's just routines have never really worked for me because then I find that I get complacent and then I'm not really paying attention to things and conditions have changed and I didn't really need to go out there. So
So I see another watering question that came up. How do you water the green stalk tower? So I will say on the very top of this vertical planter, you'll see that there's a I guess you can't really see it in this, but there's almost like a little container that is sitting on the very top, and you just fill that top part up with water, and it goes and waters the entire thing. It's amazing. It goes through and distributes the water out for you. So you don't have to like go through and hand water like each pocket. It does it itself. So it's super easy.
It gets all the way down to the bottom, Carrie?
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
It has like a line where you just fill up the water to, and then it goes and waters itself.
Very cool.
Okay. Oh, Katie wants to know what plants I'd recommend to grow in it. Honestly, you can do a little bit of everything in there. We have, like I was saying earlier, we have one that is fully just lettuce. We have one that's fully herbs. We have one that we actually put a bunch of bare root strawberries in. So I'm really excited for it to get taken over by strawberries soon. I mean, you can do flowers in it as well. It would look so pretty to do vertical growing. I of the of flowers. I love it. We're actually going to be trying out growing some beans in ours too this year. So I'm excited to let you know how that goes also. Okay, is it too late to start alliums like leeks and onions, even though the Seed to Spoon app says indoor planting dates are past? Okay, what do you think?
I
Okay,
say go for it.
yeah, I grow for it. Yeah, I mean, I would say you can start them outdoors too. I would start like so for onions, you can get like onion sets also, and just put those directly in the ground outside, and that'll work great for you. I mean, depending on where you are, I'm not sure where you're at, but I mean, we've even recently just planted out our onion sets here in Zone Seven, so and we'll probably continue to. So there's no harm in trying, right?
Mm-hmm. Especially with the biodome. I mean, you can literally start anything at any point in time. I'll tell you, I do tend to not plant around suggested dates. That is my toxic trait in gardening. um, but that's just because I want to think about it. When I'm thinking about it, I do it. And I just know my expectations that I may not get a harvest that year or that season. It may have to wait a full season. That's one thing that's nice about being in South Carolina is that stuff typically, like onions, they do overwinter and do come back the next year. So I'm kind of ahead of the game the next year.
Okay, what is the best soil to use in the green stock? Okay, so what we do for ours is we make all of our own soil mix. We do a Mel's mix, which is a mixture of compost. It's all equal parts. So we have equal parts of compost, vermiculite, and then either coconut coir, peat moss. And then we mix all that together. And that's what we use as our soil mix. But you can also just use like a regular potting soil mix in there, and it'll thrive for you too. Okay, not successful growing coriander. You have any tips?
I will tell you, it has a different season than most people think it does. It is not a summertime herb. It does not like the heat. It is a cool season herb, which is very contrary to what society tells you that it should be salsa and freshness and
Yes.
hot weather kind of stuff. Mine has already begun to bolt, so I've had it for a while. I have no tomatoes. I have nothing to make salsa with, so I have a bunch of cilantro and coriander, but not a whole lot to do with it. Um,
Yes.
Success there is you just have to know your season. It does require quite a bit of moisture from what I have learned just to get started. It does not require moisture after it starts growing. And mine just goes to seed every year and I have it growing everywhere. It's in my yard. I mean, I have not been successful by my own doings in growing coriander. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
But I have seen it. I have not had success growing it from seed indoors, as in germinating it prior to planting. I have always had the best of luck just direct sowing and allowing it to
Absolutely.
sit and stay moist and continue to do what it does.
Yes. Definitely great advice. I don't ever really transplant my cilantro. I just direct seed it outside and it'll grow. Okay, Samantha says, do we need to harden starts from our park seed biodome before transplanting it outdoors? If so, how would you recommend doing that? So, yes, for sure. I would harden them off just like you do any other seedling that you get, either from the store, I would still do it, or from your garage, I would do it, or inside the house. So, just over the course of about a week, you just need to go through and just gradually expose it to more and more elements outside. So, more exposure to the sun and more wind and things like that, just to get it more used to its growing environment before just throwing it out there, because it's been sheltered its whole life. It'll be shocked if you don't do that. So I would definitely recommend spending at least like a week or so with some field trips out to the garden.
And if it doesn't make it, it wasn't meant to be. Try again.
Yeah, absolutely. Ooh,
Ooh,
what is the biodome? Oh, yeah. Thank you.
kind of see mine right there.
Oh, nice.
It's got stuff in it. Second round. I had no business planting more seeds, but I did.
I love it. Well, you want to take this one?
I mean, sure. It's a seed starting kit, and it's kind of a rudimentary hydroponic system. It comes in a couple different sizes. We've got double biodomes, which can fit a lot of items, and it's larger. And then we've got more of a 10-20 size, which can also fit a couple of different size plugs. What's really cool about the biodome is it is virtually mess free. They're biodegradable, compostable, soilless media plugs that go in. And I might have something right here. You can kind of see
Yeah,
it.
they look just like sponges.
Yeah,
It's
they kind of look like sponges. Here's a big one that I have that I plan on starting some flowers in, but I've got some smaller ones too. And you literally, they're pre-drilled with holes. You just soak them in water for a few minutes and you drop your seeds in and you stick your biodome with the cover on and you just let it go. And it's so nice because especially if you work full time like I do, and I still love gardening, I'm able to do this really quickly during the winter time, very efficiently, no mess. I used to plant in those 6 packs with soil, and I would always procrastinate because I didn't really want to clean them and I didn't really want to fill them. And I didn't really want to get my hands dirty right away. So the biodome is just a fantastic way to get yourself started. And I kind of made a pact with myself this year that I'm going to try to have something in my biodome all season. So, like I said, I don't follow planting guidelines very well. I kind of, it's pretty much Wild West out here, because I just want to see what I can grow. And I'm very well versed in when things can go outside and what kind of conditions. And if I don't follow those guidelines, I know that I can manipulate it by offering shade or just watering more. But yes, if you don't know what a biodome is, hop over to parkseed.com or go through the Seed to Spoon app, because it is a really cool growing system. And it's just going to get better with time. It's reusable. It's rigid. There's no flimsiness to it. I mean, I could keep going on.
Okay, so how do you figure out how many plants you can fit in a raised bed? I will say for me personally, we always use the square foot gardening method. So we have a section in the app where it will actually say like how many per square foot you can plant. And we just go through and like we have a seating square also, and those are really fun. But you can use that to help you view where, like kind of eyeball it of how many you want to put. So like this one, these beans right here, for example, say 4 per square. So you would just visualize a square foot and then put 4 in there. That's how we do it. At least we do a lot of square foot gardening. What about you, Laura?
I'm not as exact and pretty as your garden is. I am definitely one of those people that if I have space, I'm going to put something in it if I can, because that means less weeds and less watering because I don't have to mulch as much and the soil gets a little bit more shade. And um, I prefer to have as much in my raised beds as possible. But that is also because I do have a background in growing and I kind of know how big things are. So it's not quite as probably as chaotic as I'm making it sound out to be. But you can fit so much in a raised bed in a small space. You really can. And I really do firmly believe that the more experience you give yourself growing something, you'll learn more and more what things can handle and what things shouldn't go together and how big things get. And I don't use seating squares, sorry.
We do, and we love it.
I'm glad.
The kids love it too. Makes it a lot
I
easier.
bet. Yeah, I could see that for sure.
Okay, what's the best way to store your seeds and how long can they be stored? So I mean, honestly, you can store your seeds for a really long time if they are in a good environment, somewhere that is cool, dark. Um, yeah, that's the best advice I can give for that. And one thing I will say for Park Seed, like they have amazing seeds because they store everything in like refrigerated conditions, and it's all in just this optimum storage area as opposed to like just sitting on the shelf at a store or something. And they last so long.
Yeah, I actually have my seeds over here. So
Nice.
this is my seed organization thing that I'm pretty proud of this year. It's a whole binder full of stuff.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, we ended up organizing ours that way this year too because we were trying to stay organized and have everything alphabetical too by like different like warm season, cool season, and then flowers.
Right. I have mine organized between starting indoors and direct sow. That's
I
kind
like
of
it.
where my head goes usually. And have always kept mine in a closet in the house. Seeds are typically not viable anymore when moisture gets into them.
Yeah.
So when your seed wants to germinate, the very first step for that germination initiation is the uptake of water. So if you have any moisture at all, it's going to start doing something to the seed and wake it up. If it's not ready to grow or in growing conditions, it's essentially going to die. So I always recommend don't store them outside unless you have a temperature controlled area. But keep them in a dark place. I mean, any air conditioned home, normal temperatures are usually fine. And then don't do what I did and wait 6 years to organize your seeds because you will buy things that you already have.
That's good advice. Okay, what types of fertilizer do you recommend to have on hand for your various plants? Oh, yep. You see, Dale knows me so well.
I
He knows
mean, I can
exactly
talk
what I'm
about
going to
this for
say,
you.
like before I say it. It's so funny. Yes, I was going to recommend this. We pretty much only use Espoma. I mean, there's an Espoma fertilizer for pretty much everything. There's a tomato tone. There's a basic garden tone right there that you can give to anything. They have flower ones, berry ones. So I mean, there's one for everything. This is what I recommend because they're all organic and they work amazing.
Espoma is a great company too. So that's another reason why I, even before working for Park Seed, have always used Espoma. They are wind generated. They are a great resource to the environment. They care about the environment severely. So that's always a good idea because if they're caring about those things and they're caring about what they're putting into their fertilizers and that it's all natural because at the end of the day, you're eating it. So
That's true. Ooh, this is a great question. Which plants do you recommend buying from starts versus starting yourself from seed?
Hmm.
So there are some things that are just very difficult to start from seed and or take forever. And a lot of those are going to be your herbs. For me, I mean, things like oregano,
Mhm.
thyme, um, rosemary, things like that. I mean, they're amazing propagated. They work terrific by that, but they're going to be a little bit more difficult to start from seed and take forever. Now, we did this year just for funsies because we hadn't ever done it before. We started them in the biodome and they actually grew. It was so cool. But that was the first time we had ever been successful with starting those. So those are ones for sure that I would recommend starting, like just as a transplant or propagate from somebody. Like ask somebody if you can go take a cutting of it. That'd be great.
A commonality of what you just mentioned was all of those herbs tend to be woody herbaceous herbs. They are just very difficult to grow from seed in general. And most growers are also taking cuttings of like mother plants and propagating said
Yeah.
plants. So even when you're buying them from wherever you're getting your starts from, they're also propagating. They're really not growing from seed usually.
Yeah. It's so much easier to do too. And I do want to remind everybody, make sure that you guys are leaving your questions in the comment section for us. And each time we pull up your question, you're going to be entered to win our giveaway today. And we're giving away, we partner with Greenstock for a free vertical planter, as well as a 1 year free premium from Seed to Spoon app subscription. So keep commenting away. I'm loving y'all's questions. You guys have great questions. Okay, what's the best plants to use together when companion planting? So I will say my very favorite companion plant. Well, I say that my favorite pairing. I'm going to say three of them. To go with tomatoes is going to be basil and marigolds. Those are just two things that every single time I plant out tomatoes, I always have basil and marigolds. First of all, to help with repelling pests. The basil helps the tomatoes to taste better even, and marigolds will help to bring in pollinators. There's just a lot of benefits right there with all of those. So that's my very favorite pairing. But I will say there's a lot of things that you can plant together. If you are looking in the app, you'll see our companion plant section. So Dale has tomatoes pulled up right here. And under companions, you'll see there's a bunch of friends, things that you can plant with the tomatoes. And all of these things right here are ones that would do really well with them. And then there's also, I will point out, an enemy section too, because there's some things that you don't want to plant together. So these are just a few things that you want to make sure to avoid planting next to your tomatoes. So,
I found most herbs are companion plantings for most things.
yes.
I
Yes.
plant basil and oregano because that's the easiest for me to divide and grow from seed and around almost everything.
Yeah, herbs, garlic, onions, flowers, all of those are typically really good companion plants. Okay, we got another question. How do you choose the best soil for your zone? Most of the commercial soils are clumpy and soggy. I definitely agree with you there. So I mean, that's why we make our own mix. So I'm gonna plug Mel's Mix again. That is exactly what we do. Mel's Mix from Square Foot Gardening, and it is a really good mixture. It is 1/3 compost, 1/3 vermiculite, and then 1/3 of either coconut coir or peat moss. And it creates an amazing consistency. It helps retain moisture, not too much, but it's a really good mixture. I can't say enough good things about it. It's what we've been using for years and years, and it works really well for us.
And that won't really vary by zone much.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
watering consumption of it might change some, but the actual soil mix won't be zone dependent. If anything, your plant choices of what you're planning on planting would be more dependent on it.
Yeah, and I will say too, like if you are growing in the ground, I would recommend getting a soil test. You can go to your local county extension office and they can do those fairly easily and cheap for you. And then a lot of the times you'll want to add some compost, whether it's a raised bed or in ground, just to help give a little bit more life. Okay, I love it. Can chicken manure go straight into a garden or does it have to go into a compost pile first? So we actually have chickens here too, and but we cannot use their manure directly into the garden. We do have to compost it first because it is extremely high in nitrogen. It does really well. It's great source for you. But yes, make sure you do put it into the compost pile first.
That's pretty much true of most things. It's
Not
just
goat
as
poo or rabbit
really.
poo or llama because we have all of those as well. So I had to find out. But yeah, actually, like rabbits, we had a couple rabbits in the city, and it was for this purpose. And I mean, they're super easy, and the kids loved them. And we could just take their droppings directly from in there and add it
That's
into the
fantastic.
garden. Yeah, it was great. Okay, how can you be successful planting lavender? You want to take this one, Laura?
Sure. I successfully started lavender from seed for the very first time last summer. Right now, my mint is mugging it out, so I need to fix that. um, so lavender, if you're growing from seed, um, really needs to be cold stratified. It typically for a couple of weeks. So whether that's putting it in the freezer or the refrigerator is typically sufficient enough. Even then, that can be difficult to do from seed. Again, this is one of those woody herbaceous perennials that just is a lot easier to propagate. So typically, I would probably buy starts or try to propagate it. The one thing about lavender is you got to think it really likes rocky, arid soils. It does not like wet feet. It does not like to be overwatered. It does not like humid environments very well. Although I will say there's a lot of varieties on the market that have been bred recently to withstand more humid temperatures and environments. So it is something that the industry is been trying to broaden. But other than that, I have very heavy clay soil here. It has not done well even from starts in clay soil. So that's something I currently have it in a container right now. And if it wasn't being mugged by my mint, it'd probably be doing just fine.
Yeah, I will say it is definitely one that does not like to be watered too much, and I feel like people kill it a lot with too much love. So, but we've always been really successful planting in our Mel's mix, and we typically grow these in our smart pots, our fabric containers, and they thrive. They do really well for us in those. Okay, where do you get cheap vermiculite, and where do you get compost other than manure for Mel's mix? So vermiculite, I mean, I would recommend going to your local garden center. That's probably where you're going to find the best value and the best place to get it. It was about $50 for us per like huge bag in Oklahoma. It's pricey, but it will last you a long time because it's a huge bag. It's like I don't even know. I don't want to throw out. It was like 4 cubic feet or something like that. I don't know. It was very large and yeah, it'll last you for a while. And then composts. So worm castings are an amazing resource if you have anything like that. Um, there's also local places too. We have a local place that makes compost. What's great too is that they have zoo poo, so they source some of their ingredients from the zoo and they make compost from it, which is amazing.
Other than manure, you can use mushroom compost, you can use the worm compost, you can use leaf compost. Those are typically, I'd say the leaf compost and the mushroom compost are probably the easiest to find in garden centers. In comparison, you can find worm castings, but it's not as easy. You do typically have to buy those online if you don't vermicompost yourself. Um, but yeah, I've used mushroom compost before. I would say it does mess with the salinity of your soil sometimes, just based on where it typically is grown and how it's grown to become compost. So um, you can usually identify stuff like that with a soil test once you've mixed it in. Um, or if you see any kind of iron deficiencies, that's typically a sign of too high of salt.
Okay, this is a great question. The difference between vermiculite and perlite. So vermiculite, so if anybody doesn't know exactly what we're talking about, it's these little tiny white pellets almost that you see inside of your soil, the potting soil mix. And these will help to soak up water and retain water in your soil mix. It works amazing. It's kind of like a sponge for your soil. Um, Perlite is more like a filler for your potting soil, and it allows for excess drainage, things like that. So it's not really as great for soaking up water. So obviously, vermiculite is always going to be my pick over all of that.
And there's always controversy about whether or not perlite is organic or food safe. Technically, it is. It is a volcanic spun rock that is just baked at super high temperatures, and that's what makes it porous. And it does not absorb water, and you can actually like propagate directly into perlite. You don't even have to have the Mel's mix or anything. You could just strictly use perlite if you wanted.
Oh, how to ward off cabbage loopers from brassicas. So our method that we're doing right now is using a bunch of insect netting. We built these DIY PVC dome hoop houses on top of our wooden raised beds, and we're using insect netting to help to protect our brassicas that way. Something else you can do if you are having issues and you see them on your leaves, you can go through and spray what's called BTK, which is it's all natural ingredients, and it will help to kill off those caterpillars.
That's my favorite. I use it probably too much during the summer.
It's very helpful.
Very helpful.
Okay, my property gets very little sun. What are the best plants to plant in the vertical hanger in this situation? Um, I mean, there's a lot of options. This is a great robot question because I feel like I ask robot this a lot whenever I'm planning out shady spots. But typically, it is going to be your greens; those do really well in the shade. Herbs can also thrive. Things like mint, like we had mint growing in like solid shade before, and they thrived. Um, yeah, I would recommend those ones.
I have no shade in my property, so I have very little experience with food.
Okay, best tomato for a short season for zone 5. Um, I would say any sort of determinate tomato, like the cherry. So, like cherry vining ones are going to be really fast, also. So,
You're going to
anyone,
get a high yield with a vining tomato too, like the sweet
yeah,
100 and stuff like that.
yeah. Park Seed also has. They have like an early girl one. There's also Park Season Starter as well. I know that one is really fast. Things like that. You can find a lot of ones that are good for short season. There's also a lot of like kitchen minis that we have that they're so cute. They grow like a foot or two tall and give you a bunch of little tomatoes. Those are awesome too, and those will be really fast growing for you as well.
And always get a head start on your tomatoes inside. They grow so easily inside. So, I mean, if
Yes.
you can't plant till after Mother's Day, if not into May, then make sure that you're starting up to 2 or more months before inside.
Oh, squash bugs.
Yeah.
What do you recommend to prevent them? Tried neem oil, it didn't work. Yeah, I feel like squash bugs are indestructible. Oh, I hate them. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're my nemesis.
that's the thing you have to keep up and scout for. Manual removal of eggs is really the only way you can keep on top of it. Even then, you're still borderline going to get infestations. Um, I had a horrible time with pumpkins and squash last year because of that. That was one of the things that I failed at. I just couldn't keep up with it after a while, and I just kind of let it go. I will hopefully not be doing that this year. Um, the duct tape method has been the easiest way for me to get the actual eggs off the backside of the leaves. So always be scouting for those little brown patches of little tiny dots, which are technically eggs. And you just take a piece of duct tape and you stick it on it and you peel them all off. And it comes off very easily. When things get real hairy, I just chop leaves off.
Yeah, I will say one thing that we've done before in the past that's worked pretty well is by putting like a T-post or something next to it and try to train it to almost grow vertically.
Yes.
So that
Yes.
way it's more in sight. They don't have as many places to hide from us or from our helpers like the wasps and all of the things that might help us out with that.
Yep. I've also done that as well. And I'm going to try it again this year, but we'll see. I've still had the squash bugs, though. I've tried the traps with the clove oil and the sticky goo. I've tried it all. It's just something you got to keep up with. It is literally just a gardening nemesis. It's not much you can do about it.
Okay, so Mary says her sage is blooming. Do I need to pinch that off? Okay, I love sage. It smells incredible. But yes, you will need to pinch off the top. It'll help to encourage more growth and but it'll make it grow more bushy and you'll love the smell when you do it too. Okay. Richard says, "What are your tips for growing tomatoes in containers?" So we are actually growing quite a few of our. I mean, pretty much every tomatoes that we grow in a smart pot. Works really well. We put them in. I mean, depending on the size of tomato, we have our kitchen minis and really tiny smart pots. But typically, with our other tomatoes that we have outside, we're putting them in like a pretty large smart pot. We're putting them in like a 20-gallon smart pot. Um, the bigger you can go, the better because you'll have to water it less. It'll just be a lot easier and healthier for you. And honestly, we always do like one of the big ones too because we're putting a tomato on the side and also a marigold and basil as well, and trying to do some companion plants. Okay, do you have to use liquid fertilizer solely in the green stalk? Um, no, so what we did is we just, whenever we went to fill it up, we put in some espoma to the soil. And then we have been using like some fish fertilizer for it whenever we water it every like few weeks, 3 to 4 weeks, you'll go through and do something along those lines. And we love using fish fertilizer. Okay. Do you have to use grow lights for seating indoors, or can you sit in front of a window? What do you say, Laura?
I'll take it. You can start in front of a window. I recommend that for beginners anyway, just because it teaches how important light is for plants. Your plants can get a little leggy, which means they're just kind of spindly and a little taller than they should be. That doesn't usually damage the plant if you're transplanting at the correct time. But it's totally possible to definitely grow in a windowsill. I did it for years. I've literally only been growing indoor seed starts with lights for 2, 3 years now. My third year. Um, I like the outcome better because you have a more stockier, shorter, stronger plant.
And
Um,
stronger, yeah, for sure.
yes, but it is not just because you don't have a grow light, a fancy grow light. I mean, there's so many on the market now, but um, don't let that discourage you from starting in front of a window because it is possible. I think your biggest things if you are using a window is just to make sure that you're rotating your seed trays because seedlings are very I believe the word is phototropic, which means they follow the light and they're going to stretch towards wherever the light is. So just being able to rotate will also help that. You can also try things just like fluorescent lighting. Some fluorescent lighting will give off the correct numbers to help seeds grow as well.
We use a
um,
lot of shop lights in our growing area inside, and it works terrific. It works amazing. As long as we're not growing to flower or fruit, like it works
Yes.
terrific.
Yeah, because
Just getting
at the
started.
end of the day, you're just trying to get your stuff started. Unless you're a commercial grower, there's really no reason for you to do a whole lot of research into lights to make sure that you're growing with the right spectrum, because it will all work fairly well for just seedlings.
Yeah. So we have a few minutes left. We're going to try and answer as many questions as we can in the last few minutes. And then so make sure you guys get any last minute questions that you have. And we are going to be doing our giveaway here in just a few minutes. We're going to do it at the top of the hour, right before we go. Okay. What happens if you overwater the green stalk? Is there drainage? Yes. So at the very bottom, it just runs out the sides. So yeah, you don't have to worry about it. Okay, I would like to grow spinach inside year round. Is this possible? That's amazing. I love it. For sure. We're actually trying to do this ourselves this year. So yeah, I'd say go for it for sure. As long as you have good lighting. Okay, I've heard using coffee grounds in your garden is good for the plants. Which plants will benefit from them? So we use a lot of coffee grounds, and we actually in the past have gotten a whole bunch. But you do need to be careful sometimes with getting too much coffee grounds in there because it can make your soil a little bit more acidic. But it is a great source of nitrogen. But things like tomatoes, peppers, blueberries will all really love them.
A lot of slug-like pests don't enjoy it either. So,
Yes, yeah, it will help with that as well. So double positive.
and you get to drink a lot of coffee.
It's a good excuse for me. Okay, feelings on living mulch versus regular mulch. Yeah, for sure. I think living mulch is an amazing way to go about planting. One thing that we're doing a lot of this year is we have several smart pots that we have filled up with just solid lettuce right now. And here, I mean, it's going to bolt and go to seed pretty soon because it's starting to get pretty hot. But we're going to plant a tomato like right there in the middle of it and let that tomato thrive from the lettuce essentially. So it's going to work really well. So I love it. I mean both ways are fantastic.
I do a lot of living mulch in like ornamental beds because then you don't have to weed as much and you're going to get flowers at different times. And uh which flowers as mulch? Let's see here. I use a lot of phlox ground covers. There's
Ooh,
isotoma, which comes with a blue and a white flower. Phlox subulata, which is a creeping phlox, has pinks, purples, whites, blues. Verbena here in zone 8 is technically a perennial, so I use a lot of that, and it's got a wide spread. There are some creeping rosemaries that I have used too. I I believe Rosemary Irene, and I believe Park Seed and Wayside and JP both all have it. There's Lismanthia, Creeping Jenny. That's another really good one. There's a lot out there. So just the important thing with that is just make sure that you have the right light requirement, and it typically will thrive great.
Okay, do you recommend mulch for all garden beds? Pretty much everything will benefit from mulching.
Mm-hmm.
We typically don't mulch in our lettuce beds or spinach, things like that, just because we're going through and harvesting a lot, and it is a pain to pull pieces of mulch out of it whenever we're going through and cutting. So we tend to not do our greens, but everything else we pretty much do.
Yeah, the whole purpose for mulch is to keep soil temperatures not so drastic. Like you don't want big swings in your soil temperatures. And it also really helps moisture retention in your soil too. So the sun will dry up the mulch before it dries up the soil that your plants are getting all the moisture and nutrients from.
Okay, what are the easiest vegetables to grow for a beginner gardener? Oh, I love it. So some things you can grow. Honestly, the best thing to grow, I'd say, would be radish. Is always super
Yeah.
easy and fast. Radish, lettuce. Um, those are always my top two picks. I mean, things like cucumbers are super easy too. Cherry tomatoes, if you have space, are really good too.
Yeah, I would say radish and tomatoes. And the reason, I'll give a little disclaimer on tomatoes. I think tomatoes are really good for the beginner gardener because they're typically easy to identify if there's a nutrient deficiency or if there's something wrong, which teaches the gardener to manipulate things to get a better outcome. And you almost always can do that with a tomato. So if you have blossom end rot, it's usually calcium. You do a little research, you learn to identify what that is, what that means, and then you put calcium in the soil and you'll see new tomatoes come out without the blossom end rot. So to me, that's important for a beginner gardener to see that you can manipulate certain outcomes.
Okay. Oh, another one. So, what are your must have garden supplies for a beginner gardener? Um, hands. I like it.
No, yeah. I really was talking about gloves. I
I was gonna
love
say,
my
I need
garden.
my hands to garden.
I love my garden gloves, but yeah, that's really pretty much all I do.
So I will say, like, a spoma fertilizer is going to be super beneficial for you. We have a soil knife that really helps us as well. Whenever we're weeding, whenever we're planting. So something along those lines, super great. And then of course I do have to say the From Seed to Spoon app. That's a definite necessity for a beginner gardener.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, are we announcing winner? Yep, we are at the top of the hour. So, congratulations to our winner. Let's see. To Anna Wright. Congratulations. I did see her name pop up a lot while we were talking. So, congratulations. Email us at info@seedtospoon.net and we will get your address from there. And we'll also get you set up with your free premium 1 year app subscription. And you'll get that the 5 tier green stock vertical planter as well. And I hope you love it as much as I do. I absolutely love those. They're amazing. So congratulations. Very exciting. Again, email us and we'll get you all set up. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. This was super fun. I still feel like we ran out of time to answer everybody's questions. I'm sorry. We'll just have to do this again. Well, thank you, Laura, too, for joining us today. It was fun, and hopefully we can do it again soon. And we'll do another one of these Q&A sessions again very soon, and hopefully we'll keep answering everybody's questions.
Yeah.
In the meantime, make sure you guys, if you aren't already following us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, here on YouTube as well, make sure that you guys are, because we post all the time daily tips and tricks from our garden, or pretty much everything. So, yeah, that's it right there. That's us. So I hope that you guys will join us again next week. We do these every week. We do them every Tuesday, hanging out together. So hopefully we'll see you again next week. Bye,
Have a,
everybody. Thank
have a
you.
great week.